been making YouTube videos now for just around 10 years, started in 2010, and I thought it would be fun on a 10-year anniversary to look back at a video that I put out back in 2010. It was one of the first popular videos I had about building a little rough cabin or shed in the woods out of tarps and black locust for $100. Here it is 10 years later. I'll link to that old video both here and in the description. You should check it out. It's kind of fun to see this grainy old video of me trying to figure out how to be a YouTuber. Now I'm very professional, as we all know, but anyway, 10 years later, here it is. It's still around. And so this basic structure made out of black locust posts that I harvested from my friend's woods, split by hand using an old riving technique. That's another video I made back in the day. You can check out if you're interested. Then used some Scots pine trees that were on the property and some scrap locust lumber from a local mill to make the skeleton for this, and then used billboards that I battened down to make the roof and the side walls. These were billboards that were going to be thrown out, and so they were free, and I removed them from the waste stream. It's crazy, 10 years later they're still holding up. You can see the side panel, tongue-in-cheek, is a baby's head. That's the mouth. And behind this pile of materials that we'll be using for expanding our orchards is a 2-foot eye. Pretty eerie, a little funny, definitely very practical too. When I built this back in 2010, my idea was to use this as a 3-season living structure. And in fact, both summers of 2011 and 2012, I believe, I had an 8-bale straw bale bed that I built in here. It basically was the equivalent of a California king. That was $8. It cost me $1 a bale, and incredibly comfortable. And I slept out here spring, summer, and fall for 2 years. In fact, the sink that I used to wash my face is still here, and even the little hook that I hung a solar bag from in order to have hot water. So it was very simple, but really nice space to spend time as I worked and developed the woods here. And at $100, even if it only lasted a year or two, it would have been amazing. But here we are 10 years later, and it has moved into another type of form. I spent a little time this morning clearing things out, getting a little more organized. But this is out in the woods, and it's really not, it doesn't have to be in perfect shape. It has made for an incredible depot to store things at least a little bit out of the weather. So I've got cages to help protect trees. All of these drums were used in various biochar experiments, which I used to document back in the day. I've since moved almost entirely over to cone pit method, but they're still here and I can still work with them. I've got rolls of nice quality fencing. This is some of the only things in this whole space that you'll see that I actually paid money for. But I'm keeping them out of the weather until I need them. And the other day I had a neighbor from right next to where Sasha and I live that turns out they had a 12-foot by 20-foot carport that they weren't using. So they gave me all the metal for that so I can build a high tunnel, 12 by 20 high tunnel using plastic that we scavenged from old greenhouses, and this material would be a $10 greenhouse. You can see there's electronetting in case we ever want to have mobile chicken operation. There's all sorts of hoses we found on the side of the road. So basically this is like a treasure trove of dumpster dived materials or waste materials that we scooped up. And to keep things organized and to keep this material in good shape, I'm storing it in here roughly in themes of, water holding and tree protecting and that kind of thing. And it's working really nicely. I had no real formal plan when I first started, except that I wanted to use billboards since I knew where to get them for free. I wanted to use locust since I could generate that. And I thought it'd be a good opportunity to learn some basic carpentry skills. And very, very basic they are. But the really nice thing about this, I think there's a couple layers. First of all, for those of you that think you'd like to build some simple structures, maybe a firewood shed or a structure for your chickens or what have you, you really don't need to have a lot of skills or training or that kind of thing to get going. And as long as you're a little careful and thorough about making things safe where you can really cobble things together and be pleasantly surprised with how long they last. And since it cost me $100 roughly to build, this has been a functional structure in our landscape that has worked out to be $10 per year, and it shows no sign of failing. There's a couple spots in the roof where it might leak a little here or there with the heavy rain, but that's no big deal. One distinct lesson I will take from this if I were to build something like this again is the roof, rather than having wooden battens screwing down through it, would need to be drawn very taut over the lip, over the edge of the structure, and battened from the sides so that the entire roof is one clean contiguous surface. It started collecting needles and pine cones a few years ago, and it's quite hard to get those off of there. I really should do it, but maybe they're actually keeping it from leaking more. Maybe we'll get a living roof out of the deal. Well, hello. And we find wild creatures like to go in there as well, like our wild little cat. And once in a while there'll be a deer laying in there, or I hear some squirrels rustling around, find some caches of nuts. So anyway, I guess to some folks' eyes, it's a pile of junk laying out in the middle of the woods, and that's fine if that's how you see it. To me, it feels like a really neat way to learn some basic skills, to feel empowered to do things with low cost, to focus on sourcing raw ingredients from waste streams, and being thorough and thoughtful about how to store them and how to actually implement them. So this space facilitates a whole lot of future expansion of our nursery, of our orchards, and the like. I really love this little structure. This whole section of the woods at our main 6-acre site has a few of these experimental structures. I used to document these more, but I've since focused more on the nursery work. But we'll do a more thorough review of these later on, but just to pique your interest if you have it. It's a little cob sauna made with pallets and cob from the site. That has a sheet metal roof, so it's quite elegant, as you can imagine. And this fun experiment, this was going to be my home back in the day. And then I met Sasha, and we now live together in a wonderful actual home. But this is a straw bale cob experiment with a greenhouse attached. This cost me about $700 to build. A couple little gaps here or there. That was right around the time when Sasha and I met. So it's been on a 7-year pause. Anyway, just thought it'd be fun to wander in the woods a little on this cool but nice late winter, early spring morning and take a look at some funky structures in the woods, and really encourage folks to consider, if you don't have skills yet, you'll develop them. If you don't have financial resources, you can find the things you need for lower or no cost if you put the word out or you really keep your eyes peeled for it. And doing these sorts of structures really feels empowering, and it's very rewarding. I'm hoping to make some more time as we get through the rest of shipping to focus on doing some more tours and updates of this larger 6-acre property. It's really developing in nice ways. But for now, we're rapidly trying to get all the packages together and sent out to folks. So thank you for your patience if you've ordered from us. And we'll keep putting out videos as time allows. Thanks for watching.